Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video, you're going to be learning about how you can write your first Java program. But before you actually write your first Java program, you need to install what's known as the JDK. The JDK stands for the Java Development Kit and is what's going to help you write your Java program. Now to install the JDK, just follow the link I added in the description. That link is going to lead you to this page. And over here, you have different options for different operating systems. Just choose a particular operating system and click on the .exe file, which is going to help you install the JDK. But installing the JDK is actually not enough. You need to have something called a code editor or an IDE. IDE stands for an integrated development environment. It basically helps you to program in the Java programming language. A simple IDE you can use is BlueJ. Personally, I'm going to be using a code editor. For this video and many other videos, I'm going to be using a code editor called VS Code or Visual Studio Code. Now it's up to you to decide what particular IDE you want to use for Java. Now Visual Studio Code works for pretty much all programming languages. So once you install Visual Studio Code, you need to add a couple of extensions and change a couple of things to use the JDK with VS Code. Now I'm not going to teach that in this video because that's not the point of this video. Instead, I'll add a couple of links and videos in the description that can help you add the required extensions and use the Java programming language with Visual Studio Code. But just keep in mind that whatever IDE you use or whatever code editor you use, it doesn't really matter. All that changes is the way you execute or create the files. The way that you program is the same in all IDEs and all code editors. So even though I'm going to be teaching you using VS Code, you can still program the same program in BlueJ. Now that you have the JDK installed and a suitable code editor or IDE installed, you can finally program in the Java programming language. And to do that, we're going to get started with our first Java program. So over here, you notice that in my workspace, I made a file called firstjavaprogram.java. Once you make this file, VS Code should automatically create what's called a class and a main method for you. But the point of this video is to explain what those things exactly mean. Now Java is what's called an object-oriented programming language, meaning it works with objects and classes. Now those terms might not make too much sense now, but you'll learn more about them later on. So once you create your Java file, we need to type our first Java program. So to do this, what we need to do is create what's called a class. Now creating a class is pretty simple. So I'll just show you the syntax of creating a class and explain what those terms actually mean. So over here, we're just gonna say public class first Java program, and we're gonna add these parentheses. It's pretty simple. Public is a keyword that makes sure that a class is public to the whole program, meaning I can access this class anywhere in our program. Class is just a keyword. It just tells Java that this particular class is a class. Next, we have the name of a class, which is first Java program. Now, what's important is that the name of the class should be the same as the name of the file. Now, if you notice, if I change the name to something like first Java, it automatically changes the name of the file so that it doesn't cause any errors. Just remember that the name of the file should be same as the name of the class that you're creating. We'll just change this to first Java program again. Now something else that's important is that this is a public class. In Java you can create multiple classes. So over here I can create another class second Java program. If you notice, this class does not have the public keyword, and that's okay, that's completely fine. Just remember that you need to have one class with the public keyword, and the name of the class has to be the same as the name of the Java file. Let me just remove the second class over here. We don't need that for this particular video. Now once you create your class, you can't just type your Java program. You need to create what's called the main method. Now the main method is important because it's often called the entry point for Java. The compilation of your program and the execution of your program starts from the main method. But what does compilation and execution actually mean? We'll first create a main method and then understand what those terms exactly mean. Now our main method has a pretty simple syntax. I'll just write the syntax first and then explain what it means. You can have a public keyword as usual to make sure that the method is public, and we're gonna have a static void main and add brackets, and then we're gonna add parentheses. In these brackets, you're gonna add what's called string with these square brackets and args. Now these square brackets are used to show that this particular thing is an array. Now, arrays are not something that we're going to learn now. We're going to learn it much later. But just know that in VS Code, you'll need to add this. You might not need to do the same thing in other code editors or IDEs, but in VS Code, it's pretty important. The next thing that you have is obviously the public keyword to make sure that your main method is accessible. And we're going to have what's called a static keyword, which basically makes it easier for the program to start execution at the main method. Now, the static keyword is something that we learn when we learn about object-oriented programming. We learn it much later, so you don't need to worry about that right now. Just remember to use it whenever you're creating your main method. After that, you have void. Void is the return data type. In Java, methods can return a value. If you're returning an integer, the return data type over here is going to be different. If you're returning a decimal value, the return data type is again going to be different. You'll understand exactly what that means when we learn about data types, but just know that this main method is not returning anything, so we just say void. Then we have the name of the main method, main, which basically makes sure that Java recognizes our main method. Now, an important difference between classes and methods is that methods have brackets and parentheses, but classes have only parentheses. Now, this is actually the basic framework for your program. This basically makes sure the Java starts execution at this point inside our main method. Something else that's important is that these words over here are what's called keywords, meaning they have special meaning in Java. As we've seen, every single one of these words have some specific function or have some specific meaning. So you can't just change these words. If I make this uppercase P instead of lowercase p, you notice that it's going to cause an error because Java is case sensitive, meaning lowercase public is different from uppercase public. So when we use keywords, you have to be really careful. Now this syntax will make a lot more sense when we get to object-oriented programming, but just try to understand that whenever you're creating a program, you'll need this basic framework. Now that we made our main method, we need to do something fun with this program. If you notice, once I execute this program, it basically does nothing. Now, there's a difference between compiling a program and executing a program. Compiling a program basically means that Java is going to check for errors. Executing a program basically means that Java is going to actually run that program. Over here, if I change this P to capital P, as we've seen before, it's going to cause an error because Java compiles this program and notices that this word over here is an incorrect keyword. This P over here should be lowercase. Once you change it, it's going to compile the program again and notices that the keyword is now correct. Now, in some IDEs, you might be required to manually compile your program where Java doesn't automatically tell you if there's an error or not. Now, luckily, I don't have the same problem in VS Code. Now that we've compiled a program and everything seems right, we're going to execute this program. When you run this program, you notice that it doesn't really do anything because we're not making it do anything. So we'll try to add something over here in our main method so that Java does something fun, so that we can actually do something when we run this program. Since this is our first Java program, we'll need to print something. And we're going to do this using what's called the println statement. Now the println statement is extremely long. And right now, it might seem unnecessarily long. But later on, when you learn object-oriented programming, it will make a lot of sense why or how the println statement actually works. So over here, we'll add a println statement. In Java, you will just say system.out.println to call this method println to print a value. And in these brackets, you're going to add whatever you want to print. So let's say I want to print a number. I can just add the number over here. And when I run this program, it's going to print that number. Now, let's say I want to print some text. If I want to add text in Java, I would need to add what's called double quotes. Now, the actual term for text or words is strings. You'll learn more about that later on. Just know that text always has to be enclosed by double quotes. Over here, since I'm printing text, I'm just going to add these double quotes and we'll add some text over here. And we'll just add a simple statement. Since it's a first program, we'll just say hello world. When I run this program, it should print this statement hello world. If you notice, we do get the statement hello world. Now that's the basics of writing a program in Java. Most of these things will make a lot of sense as you keep learning more and more. Thank you for watching and have a great day.